ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Signal Hill Library. Today we're going to talk about the Signal Hill time capsules from the 1930s and the 1990s. On some of the slides, we'll be showing pictures and artifacts from the time capsules, and other slides we will show other related topics. Before we get started, I want to read a poem called In 1993 on Signal Hill by Mary Louise Lynette. In 93, I'm going to look at the sandpit, look up at the hill, the trees, the flying hawks, every rill belongs to me. I will soon scan the ocean blue, the wild, rough sea. Look to Catalina, this too belongs to me. If I desire to see, I'll inspect the sky, where soft clouds float. By cloud, serenity and storm clouds will be there in 93. At night, as I drive down the hill, the yellow lights of Long Beach are a glimmer. They twinkle, gleam, and shine. This magic, too, is mine. I want to watch ships at sea as they ply their way, the purple, distant hills, the curves of rills. Miles of loneliness stretch out in front of me. I long to see a red sun hanging in the sky, the distant mountains beyond my reach, to hear morning doves sigh. I look for heaven, you see, in 1993. So in my part of this talk, I'm going to be talking about the early 1930s time capsules. So in our first slide, we're going to be talking about Jessie Nelson and her husband, the one and only picture of them we have. And she was our first mayor of Signal Hill. On the picture on the right shows the southwest slope of Signal Hill in the 1920s. In our next slide, we have the time capsule from the 1934 had the financial reports from 1932 and 1933. A small booklet called The Magic Mound, detailing the city's history. On the pictures on top shows a group of water department employees, the engineering and street employees, and the Signal Hill Fire Department. And our next slide was the architectural plans for the 1934 City Hall, which was included in the time capsules. Each picture that you look at from left to right shows the different angles of City Hall. In this next picture, these two pictures were not in the time capsules, but it does show you City Hall being built. These photos were taken by Inman, the famous photographer in the 1920s and 1930s, who was commissioned by the city to take pictures of the City Hall, of different oil wells, and so forth. The first ever City Council meeting held in the current City Hall we have today was on July 30th, 1934, and the city meeting minutes were provided in the time capsule. Vernon Vore, a city council member at the time, mentioned that the city's council meetings originally took place in Henshaw's basement in 1924. As we get to these next few slides, these were not in the time capsule, but I want to show everyone our different city halls and our different meeting places for holding our meetings. In this picture, we have Signal Hill Clubhouse, was a famous women's club that Jesse Nelson was a member and president for several years. And here was the first ever city council meeting where they inducted Jesse Nelson as the first mayor. And this next slide shows William Henshaw's home. When Signal Hill first became a city, the meetings of the Board of Trustees was held at William Henshaw's basement from May 1924 to March 1925. His home was located at Catalina Street, which is now 21st Street, and Cherry Avenue. Right next to his home was the Henshaw's building. This was the first city hall of Signal Hill from 1925 to 1933. The city library was here. City council meetings were held here. It even had a small deli store. And these are the city employees taking a group photo. So when we had the 1933 earthquake of Long Beach, the Henshaw building was partially damaged and it had to be torn down. So the city decided to put temporary city hall in these huts. The location is not known, but it shows you on the picture on the left and the picture on the right the different departments. On the picture on the right, you'll see the librarian, Mary Trod, sitting down, and it shows a small sign that says book deposit. So moving forward, the city decided to build the current city hall on the property of Jessie Nelson. After she passed away, the city purchased the land. So the city council meeting minutes were found within the time capsule. It detailed the purchase of the metal container and the articles the council deemed appropriate for the inclusion in the time capsule, such as the building plans, newspapers, 2 photographs, and the magic mound. Long Beach newspapers in 1934 were discussing the new Signal Hill City Hall, informing citizens that it was built above earthquake standards for the time. And here's some more pictures of oil derricks. That one was the Discovery Well from 1921, and it just shows for producers that were brought in for the hill operators. Long Beach newspapers from 1934 gave insight into grocery costs. Eggs were 25 cents per dozen. Movies playing in the theaters included Son of Kong at 10 cents a seat, and the 4 strip comics such as Little Orphan Annie. Other news articles were concerned with Signal Hill refinery fires, especially the Ridgefield explosion in 1933, and protests that caused oil production to slow. On the picture on the right is the Signal Hill Tribune showing oil output is diminished over the protests. The time capsule had many documents from Long Beach since they referenced Signal Hill. Here in the Great Southwest, Long Beach Star of the Southland, there's a handwritten note pointing at Signal Hill in the background. And it's hard to see, but you can see all the oil derricks lined up. The Los Angeles County Division of the League of California Municipalities meeting was held in Signal Hill on December 21st, 1934, where Carl Hyde, County Assistant Superintendent of Charities, addressed the growth of charity during the Depression. Relief programs cost $18 million the year before. Moving on, one of the artifacts that was in for the 1930s was the police baton, or known as the Billy Club, which was owned by the Chief of Police, Jack Neblack of Signal Hill, at the time of the original time capsule. Charles F. Jack Neblack was born in 1901 in Bloomfield, Iowa, and later moved to Trenton, Missouri. He was Chief of Police in Signal Hill from 1927 to 1936. Neblack was dismissed as Chief of Police in 1936, which was one of the reasons there was a recall on the City Council the next year, which failed to pass. At that time of his dismissal, 908 citizens signed a petition for his reinstatement out of a total population of 1,120. And even the mayor himself, William Henshaw, supported Neblack. After his dismissal, he worked as a production auditor for the Southwest Exploration Company. He was also a licensed pilot, an impressive feat for that time, and a member of the Masons. Neblack died in 1946 from a heart ailment. So in this picture we have here, Neblack is the top right-hand corner right here, where he is standing. And standing just to the left of him is the next police chief, Ted Murphy. And of course, everyone cannot miss the current mayor, Henshaw, with his famous mustache. So moving on, we have police badges that were included in the 1991 time capsule. The patrolman badge, a couple of police officer badges, and a sergeant police badge were included. First badge was the Centennial Shield style badge. It was more customized with oil derricks. The next three badges are eagle tops and more common or generic. Currently, there is a new badge for the 100th anniversary. So I will end my part of the talk right here. And now, as we move forward to the 1990s time capsule, Kiwi is going to come up and present it for us. And I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight.
So in the 1990s, the time capsule, as we can see here, is in the side of the building of the current City Hall. So these pictures were not included in the time capsule, but I included them here in the presentation because I wanted us to see where the time capsules are exactly in the City Hall wall. And as you can see, it's right under where it says City Hall in the very front of the City Hall entrance. So we have Mayor Louis Dare's letter details the information about the time capsules. He describes a funny anecdote about how the original 1934 time capsule was almost disposed of by John Centino, a building service worker, while cleaning City Hall. Assuming that the beat-up metal time capsule was trash, Mr. Centino received a Golden Broom Award for his dedication to cleaning. Also, what we get from this letter from the mayor is that for whatever reason, however, no mention was made of its existence from then on, either in the official city documents we were able to find or in the minutes of the official ceremony which dedicated the new City Hall on July 30th, 1934. Most importantly, no indication of its presence was affixed to the outside of the building, suggesting when the time capsule should be opened or providing any other details. So essentially, we had a time capsule that we did not even know existed for many years. Included in the 1990s time capsule was a VHS tape from Southwest Diversified about the redevelopment of Signal Hill and the history of the city. There was also another VHS tape included, which detailed the time capsules themselves, but sadly it was not in a protective case and therefore it was destroyed. So for the Southwest Diversified, we actually have a couple of minutes of a video from that.
Signal Hill, a unique Southern California city with a rich and exciting history. Signal Hill was once known as the Bay of Smokes because of the smoke that rose from the cooking fires and smoke signals of Indian tribes. In the mid-1800s, Signal Hill became a landmark dividing line between two great Spanish ranches, Rancho Los Cerritos and Rancho Los Alamitos. In time, the ranchos were sold and Signal Hill became a town. The first real estate subdivision was recorded in 1906. At the turn of the century, residents on the crest of the hill enjoyed panoramic views in all directions. On June 23, 1921, an event occurred that changed the destiny of Signal Hill forever. Oil was discovered. Signal Hill became a boom town. It became the richest producing oil field per acre in history. As the black gold flowed, prominent citizens of Signal Hill formulated plans to incorporate. And in 1924, the city of Signal Hill was born. It had achieved cityhood, but to Southern Californians, it would always be an oil town. By 1945, there were 20,000 wells in the immediate Signal Hill area. In the 1960s, a transformation began. Today, even though the land continues to yield oil, Signal Hill has emerged as a community with a unique sense of place, with a sense of purpose, with a commitment to ensure that the city achieves its full potential. Signal Hill is a friendly small town, a people-oriented city that is justifiably proud of the community's participation in the decision-making process. The City Council invites and encourages public input. Here, every citizen of Signal Hill has an opportunity to play a role in influencing the city's destiny. Decisions being made now will have lasting impact on the lifestyle, economy, and image of the city of Signal Hill. The presence of the Price Club, new residential and office buildings, and the forthcoming auto mall exemplify the community's commitment to development that increases the diversity and economic well-being of the city. Now, the city of Signal Hill has the opportunity to shape the destiny of a significant portion of the city's most valuable property, to transform the existing open space and oil production properties into a high-quality residential environment.
So also included in the time capsule were city seals that dated from the 1940s to the 1980s. And then here we have, in the 1980s, the City Council decided to make the zinnia flower the official flower for the city, and we have the news article that discussed how this came to be. A development status report was included with updates on all projects being developed within city limits. This included the plans for the Auto Mall, 90 single-family homes along 20th and Temple, and the Hill Center, a retail center at PCH and Redondo. A lot of headline news at the time. They were creating the 1990s time capsule, dealt with the car mall that is a predominant fixture of Signal Hill today. The deal for creating and developing the auto mall between Long Beach and Signal Hill were an integral part of turning Signal Hill into a center of progress instead of an aging oil city. We also had a biography for Doris Miller, and in it we learned that she won the award for 1986 Outstanding Older American. She was the part of Signal Hill Historical Society and was the president. And she was in the Daughters of the American Revolution and Daughters of the Colonists. We also had cassette tapes and transcripts that were oral histories recorded and placed in the time capsule. John Travers was the son of Gertrude Beebe, who was a Signal Hill mayor, and Travers was an employee of the city for many years. Velma Robinette was raised in Signal Hill on a farm that in the 1990s was a Mercedes-Benz auto dealership, and she raised ducks, turkeys, and chickens. Bo Cockrell moved to Signal Hill for the opportunities provided by oil and invested in an oil site on 29th and Atlantic. Several of the documents included in the 1990s time capsule deal with statistics, demographics, and general information about Signal Hill's population. Here we have a profile of a typical Signal Hill family of 4, and it's just one of the examples of these kinds of documents. And as you can see, an annual income with both adults working was $50,000 a year. Rent was $9,000 a year, or $750 a month. Cable was $468 a year, or $39 a month. Gas, $200 a year. Water, $180 a year. So we also had reports on employees that worked for the city and how much they were accruing or making. As we see here, we have a finance analyst who was making bi-weekly $1,341 starting, and their highest rate that they could get was $1,630,000. We also had a complete list of all the employees who worked for the city at that time, including Carol Malloy, who was the librarian, who was making $1,465 bi-weekly. The following documents show the formal employment benefits and requirements between the city and the employees from 1988 to 1991. Paid vacation time was 12 full working days after the first year of employment, and after 20 years of work for the city, you could accrue 20 paid vacation days. The Education Incentive Program gave payments to an employee who gained degrees or certificates related to their position. Here we have a monthly police report for December 1990, which details different services provided, including 45 felony arrests and 90 misdemeanor arrests for the month. For the entire year, there were 1,352 arrests in total, which was less than 1989 with a total of 1,376 arrests. The time capsule also included a 1980s recap edition of the Long Beach Pest Telegram. There are mentions of the eruption of Mount St. Helens, the Oakland Bridge collapse, and Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker. Nellie Kumbalik, her obituary was in the newspaper also as a local important person's death. She was the Signal Hill mayor that famously ran on a campaign against corruption. In this time capsule, we also had articles and headlines detailing world news in general. So we had U.S. invades Panama, U.S.